friends, and welcome to the Co-Regulated Canines podcast. I'm Ashley Cipoletti, your host, and I'm on a mission to create more connection. Dogs are really just the starting point. Together, we'll explore how to live with more harmony, ease, and healing so we can show up more as the best version of ourselves, not just for our dogs, but also for our community and our planet too. So grab a coffee and let's dive in. All right. Hello, everybody. I am getting back from Costa Rica, actually, just this week. So I'm feeling a little bit like out of sorts, a little discombobulated. And I felt like I was in a really good groove before I left. And then it's like, well, here's this big trip. Have the most fun ever for 2 weeks. And then boom, you're on a plane and kind of reality sits in. So thank you for joining me today as I integrate back. And I'm not going to lie to you, I've been having a tough time with this integration process, and not just because of the post-vacation depression feels, as I know many of us can relate, but actually on the topic of emotional resilience. And it's something I've been struggling with myself and working through. Maybe not struggling is not the right word, but something I'm being tested with recently. And I figured this is a great topic to bring on to the podcast, because this is something I bring up all the time with my dog training clients. And resilience is something that we can attain within ourselves, and also to help our dogs. We can help our dogs gain more resilience too. So first, it's important to understand what this word means as I'm talking about it. So I just looked up a quick Google definition. So by no means is this, peer-reviewed per se. Maybe it is. But on Google, it was saying that it's really kind of one's ability to withstand difficult times. Also equated it to toughness, which I didn't necessarily love that last part, but I think it paints a generally good understanding of what we mean by it, and we'll dive into it a little bit more deeper. And so resilience, to me, in plain language, if we're keeping it real, is kind of like your ability to bounce back to your homeostasis after shit hits the fan, or after your nervous system is feeling activated, right? So for dogs, this would be, let's say you have a reactive dog and you're on your walk, something stresses them out, they bark and lunge. That resilience piece is like, how long does it take for them to kind of go back to their normal walk instead of being hypervigilant or alert or really disconnected and looking for threats everywhere? If you've walked a reactive dog, you can probably relate to that feeling of knowing how long it takes for your dog to feel normal for them. And sometimes it takes some dogs a longer time than others. Some bounce back right away. And for us, in the same scenario, if it stresses us out that our dogs had a reaction on to something at a walk, and we feel our heart rate go up and all of the feelings when our nervous system's activated, it would be that resilience piece is, how long does it take you to go back to your kind of norm despite that disruption or that difficulty? So some of us might be like, oh, whatever, no big deal, and move on. Or if you do it for a living, it might, not impact you quite as much as if this is this big thing that you've never encountered before. Or if you have trauma from it, or if you're going through a lot of other stress in your life, it's a lot harder to bounce back. So that's one example. And this is just something that kind of impacts us, every single one of us that's alive. And I want to share a personal story about this resilience piece. And I think it's easy in this day and age of constant information and constant stuff on social media and podcasts, and everyone's I think portraying this ideal version of themselves. And I thought, here's an opportunity for me to keep it real and be vulnerable, because that's what we're about here, and what I'm going to do despite it feeling icky and weird. So I'm going to share with you a challenge I'm going through right now, and how I'm tapping into, or what my understanding of resilience is for me right now. So I've been going through a breakup combined with just some fear around financial stability and security. And kind of tying into all of that, I think being in your 30s is a weird time where it feels like a lot of your friends are like getting married and buying houses and, hitting these milestones. And living in San Diego, I feel like a lot of the friends that I've made when I've lived here have been moving away and like going somewhere else because it's hella expensive to live here. So I can't blame them. But it's been bringing up a lot of these feelings of just like loneliness, fear, scarcity, and just things even from like childhood wounds that have just been brought to the surface. And, within these tests, I like to call it, I can relate, or I can remember times back, years prior to me doing some of this work where probably one of these things would have spiraled me into just like crying nonstop. I don't know, feeling really, really dysregulated and consumed by it. Whereas now when I'm faced with this, especially like owning your own business, this is my first year full time in business. It comes up with a lot of challenges and a lot of unknown and a lot of like fear, scarcity stuff comes up with it. But I feel like I can persevere through this discomfort better than I could have even like a year ago. And I can feel like this internal like battle of like, oh my gosh, this is so uncomfortable. I want to seek comfort. I want to like do the things that will just make me feel better immediately, or like totally just spiral and feel sorry for myself. And I'm like really trying to lean into, it is what it is. And through rejections, there's, I feel like a reward on the other side of that we seldom know in the moment. And I bring this up because I think there's probably some listeners out there that can relate or are going through a similar tough time. And I feel like, again, so much on social media and podcasts is glorified. So I figured, hey, let me share my own dirty laundry and bring up this topic of resilience, which is a lesson that I need to remember to myself today and maybe be proud of as well on one level. But I've been finding myself, again, just like going through like periods of just like ruminating on like these negative feelings and feeling sad and scared and I'm reaching towards activities that make me feel better right now. So I've been leaning into the gym, sauna, meditation, breath work, which sounds like, oh wow, like she's got her shit together, but like don't get it twisted. I don't always. But I do know that these things make a big difference for me. And I've been eating healthy, being like, okay, this will fuel my body. But I still make to-do lists for myself where I'm like, I need to do XYZ, do half of it. And then I'm like, oh, I'm tired. I'm going to put on a show and like lean into the comfort. And then I find myself doom scrolling social media. And so this example, for tie it back into the resilience topic, the things that I'm doing to grow my resilience, to bounce back to my homeostasis faster, are the gym, meditation, breath work, all of that, eating healthy. That's all helping my resilience. Me doom scrolling, it's not. And I know that. And I'm like kind of hooked into this, probably that like dopamine reward system where I'm like, oh, this just feels good in the moment. And simultaneously makes me sad and feel lonely that everyone else is out having fun and finding the loves of their lives. And I'm just sitting here alone on a Friday night, like kind of a vibe. So I have the awareness of it, and I'm aware that that's making me feel worse and probably going to delay my ability to bounce back after, because it's stressing me out a little bit more chronically. Versus I think if I really leaned into the things that I know deep down would help me bounce back faster. And I think if we relate this back to dogs, there are things that we can do to help our dogs bounce back faster. So that usually is, okay, how can we get them sniffing, licking, chewing, Sometimes for some dogs that love shredding, that can be helpful. Sleeping, maybe we can help their physical health if they have health problems that are undiagnosed by healing that. It can all really help their resilience, help them bounce back after a stressful incident better. Compared to if we are adding stress, we're going to be kind of impacting resilience in a negative way by making it take longer. So maybe I'm taking my dog after that had all these reactions then to like Petco and PetSmart and to grandma's house, and we're driving by all their triggers and we're just kind of like trigger stacking, or having people constantly pet them, or I'm doing a bath, and it's all of these things individually on a good day wouldn't be an issue, but when they're like all put on each other after a stressful incident, it's not going to help the dog recover from that stressful incident any faster. In fact, it's going to delay it. So having this awareness of when we're going through tough times, nobody leaves this planet unscathed. We all have seasons of our life that are really tough and shitty. And we also, hopefully most of us get to experience times of bliss or joy, or even just the neutral, mundane, boring in between. But if we're constantly feeling like, oh, I'm stressed and never getting to recover, and it just takes longer and longer and longer to feel our baseline, then our baseline ends up getting like worse and worse and worse. And that can happen with our dogs too. For example, if our dog is going through a tough time or has pain, and then we bring home a new puppy and the puppy's constantly pestering it, impacting its sleep, like odds are that dog's baseline of their personality and how they're acting is going to be a little bit more reactive or more grumpy, or whatever word you want to label it, because they're not able to access activities that are helping their resilience heal and grow. Versus if they were able to sleep fully, not experience pain, and just like process or chew or like really integrate through that stress, they'd likely be able to feel more normal and then be able to tolerate more stress the next day. So this is an important topic because, again, it impacts everything you do: work, relationships, your relationship with your dog, your relationship with your partner, your spouse, your friends, even if you do sports, really anything. If we're sitting there stuck in this stressful state and not allowing ourselves to recover, or don't have the awareness of what makes us bounce back faster from stress, we're going to be in that kind of really icky, nasty feeling of feeling really dysregulated longer than we need to, which can develop into chronic stress. And I feel like chronic stress is something that a lot of people are talking about right now. And the difference is if it's like short or acute stress, that can actually be really beneficial for growth. Like if we're never stressed or going outside of our comfort zone, we'll never grow, right? So some stress is a good thing and actually can help your like cells and DNA and everything become stronger, and you become more equipped to handle like tough things, and then overall to become more resilient. But if you're not able to like bounce back, or you're just like constantly thrown into stressful things without the chance to recover, and having like really any of that, like kind of resilience time, then we're entering that chronic toxic state of stress where it's like, okay, this is actually like almost poisoning us, not to scare anybody, but it can really take a toll on your mental health, your physical health. If you're a spiritual person, probably your spiritual health as well. And, it's just something to be aware of. And that happens again with animals too. And we have to remember, with our domesticated animal friends, they do not have many freedoms of choice throughout the day. So their options of what they do are mostly dictated by us on who they interact with, what things they have access to do behaviors on, even where they sleep, what they eat, if they have access to medical care, you name it. And if their sleep is disrupted. And so it's just something to consider. And on the topic of Costa Rica, I wanted to do a whole separate episode on street dogs, which I still intend to do. But a little snippet of that is it was so cool for me to see these dogs in Costa Rica on the beach that were street dogs, really well cared for by the community. Like they looked so healthy in this little sleepy beach town we were in, but they weren't anybody's pets. And they just they looked so happy. They were filled with bliss from my observations of their body language. Like they got to do whatever they wanted whenever they wanted. They had their own friendships, their own little territories that they monitored and watched and protected from others. They had their napping spots. They would dig for crabs. They would like play chase and go in the water, and like really anything that they wanted or needed to do, they did. Whether that was, you know, behaviors that made them feel safe, that were just fun, that made them connect, that gave them comfort, that got excess energy out, you know, you name it. And that would be the dog, like a dog's ability to naturally like have coping skills or just meet their own needs. It's kind of like how me and you or most adults in this day and age behave is if we feel a need like, oh gosh, I just feel like my body really needs movement right now, we can go to the gym, we can go for a run, we can go for a walk. If you're feeling really socially deprived, you can put yourself out there more often than not to make friendships or connections. If we're feeling like, God, I just really need sleep, we can sleep. Obviously, there's privilege to a lot of this, but for the sake of this argument, like most of us can make these choices in the United States, depending, obviously, I know there's, again, nuance of where you live and if you have kids and all this, but let's just say like most of us have these choices where pet animals don't. Some might have more choices than others, but a lot of them don't have much. And so it was cool to see just dogs left to their own devices, what they would do. And we stayed at this place for several days, and it was cool just to see the habits and rituals. And we were chatting with locals that were just telling us like, oh yeah, this is where they nap every day. This is where they defend their territory. They've declared it's their home, but you know, they're nobody's pets. They just like have a couple of dog friends. And it was cool to see these dogs even displayed reactive behaviors, which I was not anticipating. Usually in the dog training industry, we're like on the spiel of most street dogs like don't have aggression and blah, 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 because usually their needs are met. And it was cool and interesting to see that while I felt like they were a lot more socially savvy and socially sound, like it didn't seem like anybody felt, you know, I don't know, like the socially bad egg. They were all reading each other's body language pretty well. They still were reactive to bicycles that went by. So that was fascinating. And they were still reactive to some dogs that came by and not other dogs. They had some dogs that were their friends and some that they seemed pretty neutral about. And anytime we walked by, we would do like our morning beach walk. Anytime we walked by, they would come up to greet us and follow us everywhere. And they weren't following everybody else around. So I was like, you know, maybe I made some friends here. Not to toot my own horn, but I did immediately try to become their friend upon our entry of this Airbnb. So anyways, that was super cool to see. And an interesting thing or little snippet to think about of what can we do on a daily basis to meet our own needs, to help with our resilience and our stress tolerance, to help us bounce back when shit hits the fan, because it will. And what can we do if we notice our children or our partner or our dog also experiencing something stressful and uncomfortable? Is there anything that we can provide them to help them bounce back to their homeostasis, their norm faster? Or is there anything that we can model, especially for kids? Or, you know, does your partner maybe need to do a little bit more soul searching to figure out what makes them feel better? But usually if you tap into getting the physical body to calm down after a stressful incident, that is a great starting point. And in humans, we can do this with deep breathing to kind of activate our parasympathetic nervous system. There's even some breathing techniques where you can make a noise like voo as you breathe out. And that vibration can activate your vagus nerve and really help you calm down pretty drastically fast. So that's something that you could try. And even just 5 quiet minutes of those breathing techniques, like breathing in for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4, repeat, can be so helpful. I do that all the time. And you might even notice your dog doing some of this unprompted, not necessarily the breath holds or the VU breathing, but they'll sigh a lot. Like you see the dogs, I'll be like, and we sigh too. But it's almost like they're naturally just trying to self-regulate their bodies. And I love that. And you can even reward that and get more of that behavior, because what gets rewarded usually gets repeated. So if you ever notice your dog try to self-regulate, you can mark and reinforce that. Yes, and treat it. And you might just find that you've taught your dog to have a little bit more emotional resilience, and maybe just have fun with it and see what happens. I'll also do that too if dogs shake off. That's another physical attempt of like releasing stress and tension and kind of getting the body back to homeostasis. So look out for that. Dogs do that shake off quite frequently, especially after greeting one another. Or if you notice, I'm trying to think of anything else on the top of my head, them just naturally sniffing after something stressful. It's a little bit like breath work for dogs. They have to breathe through their nose, and like they're doing that kind of breath where it will calm their body down. So also interesting. And they can't be sniffing and barking at the same time like that. So, that's always a good win, a good plus. But all of these body language cues are things to look out for, that if you catch them, feel free to mark and reinforce that. You might get more of it. And it's also just fascinating to observe of what moments or interactions caused your dog's physical body to feel a certain type of way, and then they self-regulated. And can you catch that and notice that? And that might give you clues to things that might make your dog feel a little bit stressed. It doesn't necessarily mean bad stress, but it could just give you clues into how they're feeling. Since we can't read their minds, we have to become our best detectives. And when it comes to us, it's being aware of, okay, if our heart rate goes up, we're going to feel like we can't really breathe. We're going to get sweaty and clammy and just feel a lot more erratic. So when you notice that, that should be a cue to be like, and just take some time to do some of that box breathing or vagus nerve breathing, where you go foo as you exhale. It's fantastic. Thanks for hanging out with me on the Co-Regulated Canines podcast. If you love this episode, it would mean the world to me if you subscribed, left a review, and shared with a friend. Your support helps more people and their dogs find a little more ease and connection in their lives. Want to dive deeper? Follow me on Instagram at Co-Regulated Canines. That's CO_regulated, the letter K, the number 9, S, or head to www.coregulatedcanines.com for more resources. Until next time, take care of yourself, take care of your pup, and keep building those connections.